Most people setting up LLCs in 2025 are making costly mistakes because they're following outdated advice that completely ignores international implications. Whether you're a US citizen dreaming of going global or an international entrepreneur looking to enter the US market, your LLC strategy needs to be different from what you see in most YouTube videos. Choosing the wrong LLC structure and filing incorrectly, you could end up paying double taxes, paying more taxes than you should, or missing out on crucial international banking opportunities. My non-resident LLC owners only have so many options with banks, and we want to make sure you're set up the right way. I've helped thousands of people open LLCs both domestically and internationally, and I specialize in cross-border taxation. After years of seeing the same expensive mistakes over and over, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to get this set up correctly in under 10 minutes. And that's the goal of the video. So we're going to go through choosing the right state for your LLC, using the right address, and staying compliant. And I'm going to give you tips and tricks for every situation so that you can get everything opened quickly and correctly. So in a moment, I'll explain why the choice of state matters more than you think. So for my Americans, my people watching this video based inside the US, you're generally going to open an LLC in the state where you live. Now, that's the short answer. That's generally what you're going to want to do. And the next part still applies. For my foreign owners, so if you're a Bobby from Germany, or you're Sammy from Spain, or you're Tony from Italy, you generally are going to open an LLC in one of the private states, one of the states where your ownership is private. And I'll go over some of the pros and cons and some of the states to use right here. So the most common state that we're using is Wyoming over Delaware. And here's the reasons why. First of all, Wyoming will list your business address, and that's easier and the only kind of state that you can do for opening a relay account. If you open up a Delaware company, they don't list the business address on the state website, so you can't open a bank account at RelayFi. And when we're talking about banking and you're a non-resident, someone from outside the US, the address you use is really important. And the banking is really important because you only have like 5 or 6 good online options. And I'll go over those before the end of the video. But we want to use something that'll show a business address. And we'll go over the address part later. So it's very common to see a New Mexico, but that's going to show who the owners are. So if you open a New Mexico LLC, it's going to have your name as the owner of the LLC. We like privacy where we can get it, but it also will show the business address. So that's helpful. We generally are going with Wyoming, again, because it's one of the better options. It's the fastest one to deal with. They have your business address. It's private ownership. The state is very responsive, and it's the one I'm generally recommending if you want a private LLC. Now, if you're someone who travels to the U.S. often to a specific state, let's say you are flying to Atlanta once a month, it might be easier to open a Georgia LLC if you're going to be in that state, because it'll be easier to open bank accounts while you're in the state. If you're flying to Miami all the time, you're in Florida, it might be easier to have a Florida LLC. There's drawbacks to a Florida LLC. It's public ownership, so you can see who your name is. But the benefit of the public ownership is that it can be easier to open certain accounts. So if you don't care about privacy and you fly to Florida twice a year, it might be easier for you to actually open a Florida LLC, because then you can get a bank account open easier. And the challenge isn't opening an LLC. Opening an LLC is easy. The challenge is getting the banking open so that you can actually conduct business. So when after we're done choosing the right state, which again, for most clients, we're opening Wyoming LLCs, or if you travel to the US a lot of our Latin American clients go to Florida. Sometimes you open Florida companies. Sometimes clients already have Delaware companies open, and it can be difficult to get banking open. When we're talking about bank accounts, it's really the address matters. And now this is where we get to the second part. There's a specific type of address that's more helpful. I have many videos about the addresses, but you want to pay for a registered agent for your LLC. So there's a registered agent, and then there's a business address. So the registered agent address is someone who can receive service of process. So if you get sued or there's a formal letter coming from the state, the registered agent will forward it to you, but you can't use that address for regular mail generally. You can pay for mail forwarding and they can forward the mail to you, but when you're a non-resident, the only option you really have for banking is going to be Mercury. And if you can't get Mercury open, you're kind of stuck. And when you come to the US, it's harder to open bank accounts with just those addresses, a mail forwarding address. There's hundreds and hundreds of different mail forwarding addresses and businesses doing mail forwarding on the internet that you can find. If you go to Anytime Mailbox, you can maybe get lucky and find an address that hasn't been used that many times. But after an address is used with a bank or an institution more than 20, 30, 40 times, they flag it as a mail forwarding address, and it's more difficult to get accounts open, both at payment processors and at banks. You can still do it if you're lucky, depending on where your residential address is from and where you're living, but it gets more complicated. And we help our clients. We renting offices all the time. We let clients use our office address, and we have offices all over the country. And it's more detail, but it's the way that we're helping our clients get these accounts open. But that's really important, is using the right address. So even if you live in the US, you don't want to use a registered agent address for your mailing address. You want to use mail forwarding, and usually it's a different address. But you can get away, if you're based in the US, you can get away with using a mail forwarding address for your company. And I would recommend, if you're based in the US, not to use your home address for your LLC, because we don't want stuff coming to your house. We don't want your address to be public and associated with your business. We want to keep that private or limited to just your portion, where it has your name. If you use a Florida company, you have to put your own name and address on there. I would try and use the mail forwarding and not your personal address, because I don't want to share my address of what I'm doing with my business. If something goes wrong, I don't know if people know where I live. Stuff happens sometimes. So yeah, for my people based in the US, I would pay for the mail forwarding and just do it that way. That's what I do for my stuff. I mean, I have business addresses, so that's kind of how we're managing it. And the last step is staying compliant. And but before we get there, actually, I want to go over whether you should open a single member or a multi-member LLC. And I've talked about this in many videos as well. The concept of whether your LLC should have 1 or 2 owners depends on certain things, and it's way more impactful for my foreign owners. But in short, a single member LLC, if you're an American, it passes through and you don't pay tax on the LLC doesn't file a tax return or pay taxes. You report it on your personal taxes on Schedule C. It's the easiest way to do it if you're a regular individual American person living in the US. If it's a multi-member LLC, there's 2 owners. It has to file a separate tax return. You generally are going to have to find an accountant or someone to help you out, and it greatly complicates the process. The same is true for my non-resident entrepreneur. So let's say Tony from Italy and Bobby from Spain are doing a business together. If you're doing business with a partner and you want to open up an LLC with your partner, a multi-member LLC is great. It's the best option. It's an awesome option. But if you're doing a business by yourself, sometimes you want to add like your mom or your brother or someone as a 1% owner so you can have a multi-member LLC. That's we only really push for that in certain circumstances. That's if you're opening an Amazon store or for certain types of applications. But generally, just if you're opening Amazon. Otherwise, if you are the only owner, it's best to just own it yourself and have a single member LLC. It's generally easier. But sometimes if you need to issue a W-9 because you're getting paid by U.S. people and they want to see a W-9, you can use a multi-member LLC. Or if you're selling on Amazon, you would use a multi-member LLC. And that means you just add someone else as a 1% owner so that you can deliver a W-9 to whoever's paying you and avoid more withholding issues. Sometimes people in the U.S. don't understand how the rules are supposed to work, and it just gets complicated for them. So it's sometimes easier to do it that way. Now, the last step of staying compliant depends on how you set up your company. So if it's a single member LLC and you're a foreign person, you have to file a pro forma 5472 or pro forma form 1120 with a 5472 attached, and that's due on April 15th, and that's coming up. So if you opened your LLC in 2014 and you had related party transactions and you're a non-resident, you have to file this form before April 15th. Now, if your LLC has more than one owner, a multi-member LLC, and you had income or expenses, profit or losses during the year, you have to file a tax return before March 15th, which this may be passed by the time this video gets posted. All right, now I'm recording this a little before the 15th. So it depends on if you have income or expenses. And the penalties for filing late would be about $250 per partner per month. So if you are late, it's better to file now and ask for penalty forgiveness for your first year, and we can help you file those returns if you need to. Now, if you're an American and you have, it's the same thing. If you have a single member LLC, you just put on your Schedule C. There's no separate filing. And if you're a multi-member LLC, you have to file this 1065 form, this 1065 before March 15th. That's the real difference between the single and the multi-member LLCs that most advisors miss, is that if you do have a multi-member, if you do have a plan to have a partner, then it's best to actually set up a multi-member LLC and just run it like that and deal with it. But if you are doing it by yourself, it's often better to just keep it by yourself and don't get too drawn up or too sucked into this concept or idea of maybe you need to add another member unless you're selling on Amazon. And of course, if you want advice, you can schedule a call with me or with some of my team, and we can advise you on your specific situation and help you out through this entire process. We'd love to do that. The free call link is in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, check out the Corporate Transparency Act video. It's essential for every LLC owner in 2025. It's still required. It's probably not going to be required for Americans going forward, but it is probably still going to be required for my foreign-owned U.S. LLC owners. It's very simple. Check out the video. I'll explain who has to file and why. And if you're considering owning an LLC, this is part of the compliance that you need to deal with. So click the video and schedule a call with us if you need help setting any of this up. Thanks.